Penguin Random House Audio presents Private Means by Cree LeFavour. Read for you by Jayme Mattler. Friday, May 25th, Memorial Day weekend. Spotting the phone charger, she unplugged it from the wall by the nightstand and threw it onto the bed where the hard, white cube clattered against the fiberglass rim of the tennis racket. Tossing orange swim trunks she found hanging inside the closet in the same general direction, Alice again scanned the space before leaving the battered leather weekend bag for Peter to stuff, zip, and carry. Entering the kitchen, she pressed her bare foot to the side of the half-case of 2018 Domaina Bandol and slid it across the battered oak floorboards to the door. She'd offered a reward. Would she be forced to demand a photo of Maebelle sitting on that day's newspaper? Would the post be too tawdry? She should insist on the times. The insanity of it. This wasn't Somalia or Afghanistan or the Philippines. It was Manhattan's Upper West Side. And Maebelle was a dog. Standing at the kitchen counter, waiting for her husband to move toward the door but not daring to rush him, he was quick to snap lately. She thought of the dog's future face. Unnaturally aged, the muzzle grizzled and eyes flat. The geriatric canine profile persisted in her mind. It was nothing like the image on the lost dog flyer featuring Maebelle's eager, adorable mug, her nose practically touching the camera lens. Lost dog. $2,000 reward. No questions asked. Do not chase. Last seen May 17th in Riverside Park at 97th Street. Please call 914-219-8331. Microchip number 468-965-423-4566. No, she would not be putting up these posters on every available surface in the neighborhood 5 years from now. It had been just over a week. When would she give up? In 2 months? A year? How long was long enough? He'd left his office door open. 2 rooms away, she could discern the distinctive inflection of her husband's official doctor voice on the phone. Yes, Wellbutrin 300XL. And the patient does not want the generic. No. DAW. Dispense as written. Waiting for him to finish the call, she remembered taking her twin daughters, Bet and Emile, to a 4-H fair upstate when their chubby legs were just sturdy enough to walk in a crowd, maybe 3 or 4 years old. Biting her cuticles, the ragged skin around her nails desperate for a manicure. She recalled the heat of that dusty August day as they waited in line for funnel cakes. She'd been transfixed by a photograph of a teenager on a lost child poster. The girl's face was somehow off, but she hadn't been able to identify what was wrong with it until she read the fine print below the photograph. Her name was Kaylee, and she had been taken from that same 4-H fair. She disappeared at just 4 years old. The photo on the poster was a computer rendering of the girl at 14, her nose transformed from a fleshy button into a bony structure, her jawline formed into a too-perfect half-oval like the sharp end of an egg, her eyes set deep in their sockets beneath well-defined eyebrows. The artist had even glossed her with lipstick, or at least it looked as if she were wearing something on her unsmiling cherry mouth. In the bottom left corner, Alice had studied the then-decade-old original image, circulated when the little girl had disappeared. She could have been Bet or Emile's classmate. At the time, Alice had thought they should have done a better job with the 14-year-old face, made her prettier without cheapening her with makeup, if only to offer the parents the insufficient solace of holding in their minds a more pleasing image of their lost daughter. Maybe they never thought of her as a teen. Perhaps it didn't matter. She would always remain the girl they'd known for just 4 years, with her babyish soft brown curls and pouty lips. Lost in her thoughts, she turned to see Peter gathering his keys and wallet from the tray in the hallway, weekend bag in hand. All set? She asked as cheerfully as possible. I think so. You sure you don't want to come? It would be good for you. I can't. I have to keep looking. As she said it, She felt her throat tighten, the grief of the loss strangling her next words. Peter mercifully broke the silence she created. "Okay, I'll see you Monday night. Love you." And with that, he leaned in for a goodbye kiss. Alice moved into it, but rather than kissing him properly, turned her head at the last moment, aiming her lips for his freshly shaved cheek to dodge direct, possibly wet contact with his mouth. The fruity potency of his drugstore shampoo, fresh on his wet hair as they made brief contact, brought back long afternoons reading fat Russian novels while sucking sour apple Jolly Ranchers. Peter's absence, as the door's lock clicked behind him, immediately inundated Alice's senses. It was as if a draft had cooled the apartment. In its wake, the atmosphere thinned, the room's barometric pressure seeming to drop, taking Alice to a curiously open, airy space in which all that remained was her now familiar canine grief and the promising prospect of a thoroughly chilled Chablis. Trying to focus on the immediate physical pleasure of the crisp, cool wine filling her mouth, Alice opened the BBC app on her phone and woke her laptop. She recalled her grad school days as she tasted the minerality of the expensive wine. When they'd met, Peter had seemed old, and already a doctor. She'd been practically squatting in a decrepit studio apartment in Harlem, paying for her steady diet of yogurt, apples, peanut butter, and rice cakes on student loans and a tiny stipend from Columbia. Now she was navigating past the worries in her Google email tab to the pleasure of Poshmark, Luxury Closet, and ThredUp. Scrolling through shirts, pants, bags, and sweaters, she added items to her various shopping bags. No sale would be completed. No shipping terms selected. No boxes ticked to match billing and shipping addresses. The harmless recreational activity would not cost her a cent. At 51, she was well into the pitiless softening of her body as time conspired with gravity to ruthlessly work over every cell of skin, cartilage, and muscle. Just in the past year, she'd observed the fine crepe of the skin on her thighs. It reminded her of seersucker. The dewy plumpness of her 19-year-old daughter's legs, arms, and cheeks came on as a surprise, their creamy beauty and ripe potential years removed from her own blighted physicality. She'd been careless in the sun. Patches of liver-colored scale covered her arms and chest, while the rest of her body was lightly doodled with odd freckles, cherry angiomas, and moles. 15 years of hair dye had resulted in a shade much lighter than her original brunette, as the streaks of what had begun as highlights came to dominate the whole. It was no accident. Her colorist had taken pity on her, incrementally lightening larger and larger swaths to cover the gray, manipulating the powerful chemicals to keep the effect as far removed as the art allowed, from the brassy orange hue that crassly announced its artificiality under the fluorescent light of every New York City bathroom and subway car. For all of this, Alice was still pretty, with a wild, rangy look that matched her Northern California roots. Running her fingers through her hair from the center part back, she cursed her lack of mental command as she rubbed her thumb and index finger together to release a stray hair. One more down, she thought, as the fine, expensively colored strand dropped to the floor. If the dog had been there, she would have been in her lap, staring up at her, ears forward, listening. Alice could practically feel her pushing her cool black nose against her forearm. The dog had become an extension of herself, the way the twins had as infants. Since that time, with the exception of her daughters, she'd failed at intimacy. Her closeness to the dog was proof of this. There was nothing safer or more certain than the animal's affection. When she wept, she'd laugh at herself for whispering, "It's okay, shh," kissing the dog's face, ears, back, and belly, as if it were the animal that needed comforting. The dog was never in a mood when she walked back in the apartment. Rather, she was consistently met by the outsized greeting of an animal losing her cool entirely as she whined and licked and wriggled in her arms. Coming home to the empty apartment was an affront. Alice envisioned the flood of oxytocin all the kisses released, the hormone irrigating her
Sample complete. Ready to continue?